Hello, everyone. This is Devin Thorpe for Your Mark on the World. Welcome to the show. We're excited today to have a special guest with us. We have Alfa Demmellash, who is the CEO of Rising Tide Capital and the winner of one of the very prestigious innovation awards from the Social Venture Network. Alfa, thank you very much for joining us, and congratulations on your award.
Thank you so much for having me, Devin. It's my pleasure and such an honor to be among such incredible peers.
Well, the other winners are remarkable individuals, and certainly you are equal among them, but it is quite an honor. The people that have been recognized this year really are doing some amazing things, you chief among them. So tell us a little bit about what Rising Tide Capital does.
Sure. So Rising Tide Capital works in inner city communities that are economically struggling to help individuals start and grow successful businesses that can transform lives, strengthen families, and create thriving communities.
Now, tell us a little bit about the history of the organization. It's not that old. You certainly are not old. How did it come into being?
Well, about, I guess, almost 10 years ago now, my co-founder and I had discovered Jersey City, New Jersey, a remarkable place right across the river from New York City. Lots of development and growth on one part of town, which faces New York City. And then you drive a little bit, not even 3 minutes, and you get to the other side of the tracks, and they're remarkable individuals with talents and gifts, and chiefly an entrepreneurial spirit to get involved in what's happening and the growth that they can see, but no way to necessarily connect to that. And so we really tried to figure out what could be going on. Initially, we thought it was about access to capital, that these entrepreneurs and creatives needed financial resources, but then realized fairly quickly, within a couple of years of volunteering and connecting these individuals, that what was needed was a really concerted effort for business education, business management education, and as social capital and knowledge capital and access to financial capital, that these three needed to be very significantly invested in and focused on. So we looked around, we studied, we talked to a lot of people, we did a lot of listening, and realized that while throughout this country's history, there's been a concerted effort on economic development and community development that focuses on things like housing, health, education, that helping individuals to start and grow businesses, the entrepreneurial education piece, and the connecting people to resources around business creation was not necessarily chief amongst the strategies that's been invested in. So Rising Tide Capital was born. We run a community business academy that focuses on adults that are trying to start and scale their businesses, and then connect them to one another and to the marketplace, as well as to investors and financial resources from a range of partners.
Give us just a quick profile of your typical entrepreneur that you're supporting. I get the sense that you're not talking about the typical Silicon Valley entrepreneur. This is something else. This is not Mark Zuckerberg.
It's not Mark Zuckerberg. Although I went to school with him, I will say that this typical entrepreneur at Rising Tide Capital looks more like my mom, an entrepreneur who is a mom, earning about $33,000 a year from typically could be 2 to 3 jobs that she's working. She is a single mom. She has 2 kids, and she's earning about $33,000 on average in an area where she needs $50,000 to basically keep food and rent paid and take care of her kids. And so what we see is this very practical commitment to say, I'm not going to get another job, and the only way that I can potentially build some assets and be able to have a future opportunity for economic mobility is to build my own business. And so they typically start out looking to meet the needs of their neighbors. My own mother, who's an immigrant, came to this country as a refugee 10 years before she brought me to this country, and realized very quickly that working in a low-wage job as a waitress was not going to connect her and reconnect her with me. And so She started a business making dresses, initially started selling to her neighbors and friends, and her network grew, and she grew as an entrepreneur, and then was able to save meticulously over a course of 10 years to then buy my ticket, bring me here, educate me, and bring me to this mission space. So our typical entrepreneur is very different than Mark.
Yeah. So your story hints at the why, the why you do this. But connect the dots for us here, just in case we're being a little slow on the uptake. But it seems to me you have a real passion for this. Help us understand where that comes from.
Sure. I think part of where my commitment to this space, definitely, I mean, my mom was a huge and exemplary person in my life, and when I came to this country, I thought, this was the land of milk and honey, and that I was going to move into the mansion and sit poolside and ponder my American dream. But I realized very quickly that that's not the case, and like many, many millions of others, my mom was working around the clock to try and put food on the table and make sure that she's setting a path for me. And what I recognized was her individual initiative taking. And when I eventually got into college, I thought, hey, Mom, why don't you go and access these resources that are around business planning and so on and so forth to scale your business. And she felt very much like she didn't belong in those circles, that she needed to have an MBA, that she needed perhaps even an accounting degree and a range of other educational credentials in order for her to be considered a business owner, an entrepreneur, a contributor to her economy and to her community. And I thought that was strange. And so even though I would, get on my computer and look at this plethora of resources that are popping up all the time, new technologies and etc., they just didn't speak to her. And so there was a sense that, ultimately in my own studies and in my own connections to local communities around me, that the only way to break the cycle of poverty that is afflicting so many communities is to really invest in the entrepreneurial energy and talent that already exists in those communities. I mean, these are systemic issues, but when you boil down to the root, you have to look at the fact that one of the critical keys that have to simultaneously turn alongside of things like education and investments in health and housing and so on is investing in this entrepreneurial energy. So there could be income generation, there could be the structures in the form of businesses that can actually become formalized and be able to contribute to the tax base of their local community, and ultimately the only place where the job creation in this country is going to happen. And I saw what my mom was doing. I thought more of it should happen, and I thought it was a tragedy that there could be so many resources for entrepreneurs, but the vast majority of those who are working in low-income communities don't feel like those resources are in any way relevant to them or connected to them. So it's a matter of translating, and it's a matter of being a listener first and foremost, and meeting people and communities where they're at. And that's what I think we've been doing at Rising Tide Capital, and it seems to be gaining some traction. So we're excited.
Give us an example, if you can, of some of your successes. You've been at this long enough to be able to mark a few wins. Tell us a little bit about those.
Sure. So we are now at Rising Tide Capital at a point where at the end of this year we'll graduate over 1,000 entrepreneurs in Jersey City and the surrounding inner city communities. Part of our aspiration and our theory of change per se is, if we invest in a concentrated fashion in a low-income area and invest in that entrepreneurial energy, that we can change the story, that the story would no longer be about the 1 or 2% of individuals who tipped the narrative for that community to be one of crime and drugs and really hopelessness, to that of creativity, innovation, a place where people want to be, people want to invest. And I think chief amongst the stakeholders that are critical are the residents and people who live there and who want to invest in those communities. And so we are seeing that with our 1,000+ entrepreneurs, definitely the ripple effect is remarkable. We see our entrepreneurs collaborating together. We see them creating something out of seemingly nothing. We see the ways in which they're taking leadership positions within their communities. And I'll tell you a story that really touched me and let me know that we are on target with our mission and vision here, which is, sitting in an audience on a sustainability. I'm one of the panelists at a conference in Newark just recently, and a rising tide entrepreneur was in the audience. And this gentleman was a custodian at a high school where we hold our classes in evenings and weekends, and he would look in and watch these adults who are gleeful and joyful as they're learning about business and they're playing games with one another. And he never experienced a classroom setting like that. So he applied, he got accepted, and then ended up starting a medical supplies and equipment repair business. And so then fast forward to this conference, and I'm sitting there next to a college professor who had actually innovated on a technology project that processes food waste. And this gentleman is talking about his important innovation, and I see a hand go up, and there was Simon standing up, wearing his suit, looking remarkable, and he said, introduced himself, CEO of this company that does medical supplies and equipment, and he said, I know what you're talking about on this sustainability innovation is not directly related to my business, but I am a rising tide entrepreneur. I want to know how I can help you expand your innovation so that it can make a better impact on communities like mine. And then I knew that the wheels were turning, and if we can get 1,000 more people like that who are going to say, I'm a rising tide entrepreneur, and that means something different. It's not just about my bottom line, it's not just about my family, it's not about just generating revenue for my business, but I want to get involved in the ideas and visions of others around me, because it's going to take all of us. So they're the people who are saying, sign me up, I'm in. How do I do this? How can I help? And that's really the way we are looking at success at Rising Tide.
That's very inspiring, Alpha. It reminds me, going back to your comment about going to school with Mark Zuckerberg, that you, unlike Mark, graduated from Harvard. Congratulations on that. Now, you've been recognized not only by the Social Venture Network, but a remarkable number of other people, including the White House. Tell us a little bit about your experience with the White House.
Well, it was a remarkable moment, one of those times when you kind of say, well, what are the chances? Here we are working nose to the grinder, so to speak, and we were fortunate enough to have been selected as CNN Heroes. It happened to be the same day that it was supposed to air on the same day as when Farrah Fawcett and Michael Jackson unfortunately passed away. So we had not counted to get any coverage. They told us they won't, be airing. So we're back, at our work, having dismissed our volunteers who were there to answer the phones from CNN. And lo and behold, the White House was Facebooking us, trying to get a hold of us because they'd seen the video and were really inspired and wanted to learn more. In a matter of a couple of days, the president had expressed a desire to talk about our mission because he felt like this was critically needed and important for other urban communities and other communities across the country, period, that we were not going to create the jobs of the future by purely trying to attract businesses and corporations from one territory or another locality to somewhere else, that our policies need to change, our vision needs to change, and we need to re-inspire our people to think that we can create companies, and the mom and pops are just as important as our superstar Google entrepreneurs who are, scaling different kinds of businesses. We need everybody. This isn't an either or, but this is an and situation. So I was thrilled that he decided to talk about this mission while he was making a speech on Iraq troop withdrawals, a very important subject matter. I think he did that intentionally in the hopes of capturing the media's attention and seeing if he can throw some wind behind our initiative. And it's been wonderful and remarkable to have that kind of recognition. I think we need more leaders around the world to really take a look at initiatives that are adding to the entrepreneurial firepower, to the social entrepreneurial firepower of their communities and invest in them.
Well, Alpha, you are just a delight. It's been wonderful to meet you. Your work is amazing. Before you go, I wonder if you would take just a minute and tell people how they can connect with you, and tell us too who should connect with you, and then how.
Certainly. Thank you, Devin, and I want to applaud you also for what you do and for your commitment and vision. I'm really excited to be part of your universe as well, and wish you the best of luck. And for anyone who's interested in connecting with us, we're looking for volunteers, investors, people who really care about advising entrepreneurs or who may have opportunities for some of our entrepreneurs who are featured on our website, risingtidecapital.org is where they can find us. They can also like us on social media. Nowadays, Twitter and Facebook are important places where you can express your support of initiatives like this, and it adds to the credibility of these kinds of work. So they can go on Facebook and find us at risingtide.org on Facebook, as well as on Twitter at risingtide.org. We can certainly use more followers, advisors, and contributors. Every time someone donates, they're enabling a remarkable entrepreneur like Simon to be able to get a full scholarship. People go through our Community Business Academy and then are going through a personalized coaching and access to resource opportunity for many, many years. We follow our entrepreneurs over the long term, and we're excited by the impact they're making on their community. So we hope people will put their dollars and their good works and their advice to work.
Fantastic, Alfa. Thank you very, very much for joining us, and we wish you all the continued success in the world.
Thanks so much, Devin. Best of luck with what you're doing, and I'll be following you.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Let's do some good.